Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, everybody. It's time. It's time. It's all go time, man. Ladies, I hope you're ready for your man to be missing all weekend because football is finally back. Welcome to another edition of the weekend wrap up, with the Sportaholics. I'm the host, Russ. My boy Peyton is on the other line waiting to join the live. So as you guys go ahead and get comfortable in this whole atmosphere that we're going to put together for you, man, we got a big show. Today we're going to be talking about some WNBA. Today we're also going to be talking about what happened in the weekend during college football week 1. We'll get to the rankings as well as talk some NFL. NFL week 1 is finally here. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up with my boy Peyton. And we're going to get the show started right, man. And with that being said, let's kick it off with the intro. Let's do it. Peyton, another week is in the books, and we are that much closer to being busy all weekend, man. How does it feel?
I think the audience knows how I feel by now. It feels great. Hopefully I can get some predictions right, though, man. We got to get the ball rolling on that front. Jeez.
Hey, man, it's not every day that I'm right. So I'm going to go ahead and bask in all of my glory because I'm so thankful. But I'm not going to lie. I was listening to after the game with Florida State and Boston College, and Louis Riddick, he got on there and he was like, nobody predicted this to happen. Nobody saw FSU going down. Everybody expected it to be a bounce back week. And I was sitting there like, man, I kind of saw this coming, man. And I knew Florida State wasn't going to be able to get out their own way. But more of that a little bit later in the show, man. How was your weekend, bro? Please tell me how your weekend went.
Man, it was great. As the people know, I took a trip out to Las Vegas. So lots of good food, good people, and just good times in general. I love that city, to be honest. Can't wait to go back.
Yes, me as well. Now, come on now. You got to give us some details, man. What did you do while you were out there? Were you able to enjoy the atmosphere, not only at the game, but throughout the city?
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll tell you, on the first day, we actually went and did a little excursion on the outskirts of Las Vegas, and we rode some bikes around in the desert. So it was pretty cool. It was a great time overall.
Was it hot out there?
Trip out there. Yeah, it was very hot, bro. It was very hot, but we dealt with it. We hydrated and all that good stuff.
Okay. Now, walk us into the game. I'm sorry the Tigers didn't pull it out.
Yeah.
But walk us into the atmosphere of the game. How was it there being a neutral site game? Was it exciting? Was it loud? It was a close game for the most part throughout the whole game. So I know everybody was pretty much into it. So how did that go?
Well, if I had one word to describe it, I think it would be tense, man. As soon as you entered into the stadium, you could feel the tension. You could cut it with a plastic knife. But it was a very interesting atmosphere to be in. As you know, college football is all about the home stadiums. So being at a neutral site was pretty interesting. It's got its pros and cons, but I'll take a game in Tiger Stadium all day before that. But it was still good. It was still fun.
Yeah, so as everybody know, I went to the Little League World Series parade last Saturday, and man, when I tell you the city of Lake Mary showed up for those guys, everybody was cheering for them. It was really like an amazing experience. I've been to NBA championship parade when I was in Miami. I had the opportunity to celebrate with some of those early 2000s University of Miami championship teams. So I've been to some celebrations, but for everybody in the city to come out and celebrate with the kids and, show them how much they were appreciated for their accomplishments in the Little League World Series, man. It was phenomenal. It was really phenomenal. I took my mini Sportaholics out there, and we had a really good time. And here's the cool part. So after the team passed, me and my kids, we had the opportunity to kind of jump in the parade. Yeah, so my daughter, I was pushing her in the stroller, and everybody, like, she was waving at everybody, man. She was having a good time, and my son was riding on his scooter and really just celebrating. The cool part is, yeah, no, the cool part, like one of the coolest parts, a couple cool parts. Every kid had their own Corvette, right? So they were sitting on top of Corvettes, and everybody was coming through Corvettes. Like they had yellow Corvettes, gray, red, all different types of colors. They had a couple high school bands were out there. Stuff the Magic Dragon was out there. The UCF Knight mascot was out there. So a lot of people really showed up and showed out for these kids. And I couldn't be more proud to be a part of that celebration with them. So we both had a pretty exciting weekend.
Man, I would have been there had I not been in Vegas. That sounds like a very cool scene.
Listen, Vegas sound like a way better spot to be in, but for what it was worth, it was really a good time out there in Lake Mary. And now that's not even talking about the tailgate that I went to at Raymond James Stadium out in Tampa. So that was good.
Oh yeah.
We had a great time at the tailgate. Everybody knows exactly what happens at tailgates. We had some good food, some good drinks, showing, love to the USF fans and everything like that. So it was really good. But the highlight of my weekend was definitely the Little League parade and sharing that with my kids, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it sounds like a great time.
It really was. As you could tell, like I have a lot of stories to talk about when it comes to what actually went down in Lake Mary, but I'm gonna keep it brief. I'm gonna keep it short. No need to get into all of that. But let's go ahead and kick off the show, man. We talked about our weekend. You ready to talk some sports?
Of course, as always, bro. Let's do it.
All right. So first things first, man. The WNBA. We got to talk about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. They clinch a playoff berth after going 1-8 at the beginning of the season. They have gone on to go 16-8 in the past couple of games in the past few months. So what are some of the things that you're seeing out of the Indiana Fever? Do you think they have a shot to go the distance in the playoffs, the WNBA playoffs?
So I have been able to catch some highlights of the Fever, and why not see themselves like elevating their game in the postseason, taking it to another level. And there's really nobody like Caitlin Clark in the game right now. I
might have to disagree with you right there. I don't mean to cut you off, but what I will say is A'ja Wilson is a beast, man.
That's true, man. You can't forget about her. In fact, a couple of hours ago, I was watching the Aces' recent game against the Sky, and she is an absolute baller. She was balling in that game I was watching.
But continue your point about Caitlin Clark, though.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody knows this term, but just the skill set, that it's just a different type of skill set with her. And it's a lot of fun to watch. Also, the pace she plays with, very entertaining. But don't mess with the Aces, man. They're real tough.
Yeah, I will say I've always been intrigued by Caitlin Clark. Just the amount of tenacity that she plays with and her ability to pull up from anywhere on the court. I mean, by all means, if you guys have not had a chance to catch Caitlin Clark play, I think it would be a great time. They're actually heating up. The Fever are heating up. So with that being said, going into the playoffs, I do have some expectations for them. This is going to be the first time that they've made the playoffs in 8 years. So it's going to be a new feel for them. But I will say, they have the opportunity to come in and make some noise. And this is exactly what all the preseason hype about Caitlin Clark was really about. So the fact that she's living up to her name, and we're not going to leave out Angel Reese in this conversation. We're not going to leave out A'ja Wilson in this conversation. But right now, just to see that the Indiana Fever are getting a good return on investment when it comes to Caitlin Clark is really phenomenal, especially after the slow start. So congratulations to those guys.
Like you said, they're heating up at the right time.
Yes.
They're playing good ball right now.
You want to be playing your best ball at the end of the season, going into the playoffs if you do get that playoff berth. So, outstanding job for them, and I'm looking forward to the WNBA playoffs. What I will say is, Peyton, now that we're getting more spotlight, and this is kind of off the cuff, but now that they're getting more spotlight in the WNBA, do you see a immediate need for expansion in the WNBA?
I think that's a great point, Russ. I could definitely see expansion in the WNBA. There's more money in that business than ever. And I tell you what, I kind of missed out this summer because watching like football reruns in the Olympics, there were some good games in the WNBA, and I'm trying to catch up now. So I'm sure there's a lot of good business opportunities for the WNBA, and I don't see why they can't expand.
100%, man. So once again, congratulations to the Indiana Fever in their playoff berth. We are excited for you guys, and we're looking forward to watching you play in the upcoming series. So moving right along we got to talk some football. You know, we're big football heads here at the Sportaholics. So we're going to talk about what happened this past weekend, and it's not really much to talk about, but we will recap the rankings. The AP poll is out. Top 25. We have some people that's in, some people that's out. Exciting news there. But it was shutout city this weekend, Peyton. And did you get any major takeaways from what happened this weekend in sports?
Sports is popping right now overall. I mean, as you already hit on, the WNBA playoffs are coming up. We know that football's around the corner.
Yeah.
Eventually the NBA is going to come back around. So it's a good time to be an avid sports viewer. That's all I know.
So let's talk about college football, man. Like, what were some standout moments for you this weekend, aside from being in Las Vegas and living it up? Did you do any gambling while you were out there? Did you have a chance to spend some money or at least make some money?
Yeah, of course. I can't say I made any money, but I'll say I came close to breaking even. So that's the good news. Didn't lose too much.
Hey, man, that's the risk versus reward.
Yeah.
Risk versus reward is always important.
No, but as far as something that stood out to me, and I'll just jump right into it here with the top 25 AP poll. What about Penn State? I know that happened early Saturday morning on the coast that I was on. But what a standout win for them. I mean, going on the road in that environment and just shutting down West Virginia, essentially. I mean, I think they should be ranked higher in the AP poll, but to each his own.
Hey, Peyton, I'm going to have to call you out right here, man, because, you had a couple bold predictions, man, and you and last week in your playoff bracket,
yeah,
you said West Virginia was going to win. Did you say they were going to win the ACC or play in the title game? You said they were going to play in the title game, correct?
Virginia Tech,
not West Virginia, but Virginia Tech. Yeah, so
Virginia Tech lost. So yeah,
Peyton, man, I don't know, bro.
I don't either, bro. At some point, it's got to turn around, right? At some point, every squirrel. What's the saying? Every squirrel finds the nut, or whatever the saying is.
Well, I'm not hoping that Virginia Tech finds the nut if that's the case, but with that being said, my Miami Hurricanes went on to beat the Florida Gators in the Swamp, and it wasn't pretty at all. It wasn't a pretty showing, and I'm actually excited for them. I'm not too eager to jump on the bandwagon and say that we're a dominant team, but we'll have to see. We got a couple layup games here in the next couple of weeks, but once we get into real ACC competition, I can't wait to see what we do inside the conference. If you ask me, if the Miami Hurricanes win the conference championship, that's good enough. We don't have to win a national championship this year. I'm not one of those guys that say, yeah, we're going to win a natty. But I did see a couple talking heads say that they're moving the Miami Hurricanes from being a conference contender to a national national championship contender. So we'll see.
Hey, man, the Hurricanes are the only team that I was pretty much right on so far. I mean, you asked me earlier this season who outside of the top 10. Well, I know I picked them to lose, but you asked me if there was a team outside of the top 10 that would be ranked in the top 10. I picked Miami, but I still picked them to lose, so it is what it is.
I mean, other than that, it was really shutout city, including Miami's game, but it was shutout city all across the board. All your big teams. Georgia put a whooping on Clemson.
Yeah.
Alabama put a hurt in on Western Kentucky. It was pretty ugly, but we did have a couple close games, including your Tigers of LSU. Do you want to talk about that game a little bit?
Oh man, I've already debriefed. I've taken some time to get over the loss,
Yeah.
but ultimately, I will say this. LSU is a big week one showcase team. It seems like we always have a big week one game. And I think it can be good for a team to put themselves up to that type of test. So hopefully moving forward, they learn from it and improve. That's what I'll say about that.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, I do kind of want to hear your take on what Brian Kelly said about the team. When he said you did enough to win the game, but you didn't really pull it through. Is that something that they can improve on this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Just having some more mental fortitude and getting better at putting teams away, because multiple times in the fourth quarter, I believe LSU had the ball while they were winning. So just being able to put teams away. But credit to USC as well. They had a great game plan.
They really did. But this is exactly what I was talking about on last week's show when we did our predictions of the game. That all comes down to time management. And not only that, is the coaches who have to convey that message. They have to tell these guys, like, look, we are breaking the huddle at 15. We're snapping the ball at 2, 3, 1, if even possible. Like you have to have some type of awareness in that situation. Like, okay, like we're trying to score still, but we're not trying to give them back the ball in a hurry, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and walk through the conferences, and let's start with the ACC. I got a couple questions for you. Let's just say this: does Dabo Swinney have room for improvement, knowing that he doesn't really attack the transfer portal that much? And is there anything that he can do after the beating that they took against Georgia in last week's matchup?
I think Clemson can improve and get better like any other team. I really like the coordinator hire they made last offseason. That hasn't totally panned out yet with Garrett Riley coming in as the offensive coordinator. But ultimately, Dabo just has to trust his program and trust the culture that he's set. And if he's not going to go out into the transfer portal and utilize that as an option, then maybe it's best for him to play young guys as soon as possible and get them that experience that they need for the long haul. So I'm still looking for Clemson to bounce back in some type of way, but definitely a rough start for them. Now, I will say that game against Georgia was more competitive than the score would indicate. I think it was relatively close deep into the third quarter, and then Georgia pulled away. So we'll see what kind of season Clemson has moving forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. They definitely had Georgia up against the ropes in the first half of that game. And they did show some promising features in that game. And I'm not too concerned about them. But I will say about Dabo Swinney, I think he does need to take some selfishness out of his program, and he needs to be able to adapt to the times. So you have to change with the times when it comes to how the game is played. And now I'm gonna use Nick Saban as an example here. Nick Saban was one of those coaches that realized, like, this is not the atmosphere that he wants to go in when it comes to coaching and how he handles his team. He doesn't want to pay all these players that amount of money. Now, I can be wrong about this statement that I'm about to make, but I believe that was one of the reasons why he felt more comfortable in college than with the NFL, because in the NFL, they talk more numbers than they do in college back then when Nick Saban decided to go back to college. So I will say Dabo Swinney needs to adjust with the times. If not, he might want to go ahead and step down and let somebody else fulfill that role that's that's more willing to adapt to the times. If you guys understand what I'm saying. So Dabo Swinney, I do think there's room for improvement, but if you're not going to pay all of your players like every other school, and if you're not going to attack the transfer portal, you have to you have to kind of bring in at least one or two guys that can change the dynamic of your team. And now, Peyton, I want to bring you back in here, and I want to ask you this about the times that we're in college football, and we'll move on to other conferences and other schools and talk about that and everything. But the one thing I do want to ask you right now is, DJU, is this the bad side of the NIL deals and the transfer portal? Like, because DJU, I don't know what the number is exactly, but he's getting paid a pretty penny to be the starting quarterback at FSU. And now he's looking like they might as well go ahead and give some other guy a chance, whoever the backup is. So what is that saying about the landscape when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal?
I would say now more than ever, there is more pressure on all these players, especially with the money that they're getting. So for DJU and Florida State, it's been a bumpy road, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. Like you hit on, they might be better off handing it off to the next guy. But for whatever reason, that marriage between Mike Norvell and DJ Uyunglele hasn't worked out. And, it's funny, like, they had all spring and all summer to work, but until the live bullets start flying, you don't really know what you have at that position. And I think he fell back on some of the bad habits that he's displayed, during his collegiate career. So, yeah, to sum it up, I would say the money that NIL provides for these student athletes adds even more pressure than it has in the past. And college football is a bigger entity in and of itself these days than it's been in the past. So,
and to your point, it does add a bit of pressure, but also these are things that they have not had to think about other than playing football and going to class. Now you add the brand to the whole, situation, and it does get a little confusing and overwhelming for these kids. You got to remember that these kids are 20 years old, 21 years old. They don't know much about life yet. They don't know much about finances and everything like that. And not only for the players, but also for the institutions, they have to come up with programming and education on how to guide these players into this transition and what NIL is providing, also the transfer portal. Now, I another point that I do want to make, I think that, and this is the reason why I was so high on FSU being upset, is because when you have teams that are returning starters to their program and players that have been groomed by these programs and know what the expectation already is, that is where you get the camaraderie in order to win games late or even from the beginning of the clock. Like, so that is really my biggest gripe with the transfer portal, because you have players that's out there that's playing at 3 to 4 different schools every year they have a new school. So I don't think this is something that they want to happen, but this is where we're actually at right now inside of college football. So it's going to be interesting to see it grow and how it transitions in the next couple of years. I think right now we are at the beginning stages, and you know how it goes. Like, it's going to always be rough at the beginning of everything.
That's a great point. Hopefully it slows down here pretty soon and kids start to realize that, you can see it through at the school that you originally picked. So, and I think it'll come back to the median at some point.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so back to the ACC. I know we went off on a wild ride just then, but back to the ACC. Does Miami look that good, or is Florida that bad?
Oh, man. I'm going to go with Miami looking that good. I mean, we talked about the wow plays that Cam Ward can make, and he had plenty of them in that game Saturday. But what about the receivers, too, with Xavier Restrepo and Sam Brown? I mean, those guys were balling, and they looked comfortable out there in that hostile environment. So I'm going to go with Miami being that good. They should be contending in the ACC this year, no doubt.
100%. I agree with you. Miami does look that good. There was exceptional play from Cam Ward. I thought Cam Ward looked amazingly comfortable, like he really comfortable in the pocket. And to see that from a team that I've watched for a very long time, that was actually a good change. Now, also, I think I think there's no right or wrong answer to this question. I think Florida also looks that bad. And they have a lot of questions to answer inside their program. So let's move on from the ACC. Unless you have something else you want to say about that.
I will say, I think as bad as Florida looked in that week 1 game, and I'm not backing them or anything, I think they can look better moving forward. And I know we already hit on the fact that teams can improve, but I saw some encouraging signs, especially on the defensive side of the ball, even though they gave up 41 points. I think they're, just to nerd out here a little bit, I think their front seven is better than it was last year, but they've still got to go out there and show it.
100%. Let's move on to the SEC here. The SEC holds 3 of the top 5 places in the top 25. So what are some of your takes on the SEC moving forward?
Well, something I wanted to talk about with the SEC, man, as a conference as a whole, they might be falling off or not as strong as they used to be. And that's probably because of things that we've already hit on, like the transfer portal. And as we've seen, Nick Saban left. Kirby Smart talked about how his teams aren't as deep as they've been in the past at Georgia. And we saw Texas A&M, LSU, and Florida all lose in showcase games. So I'm looking for the SEC to bounce back in some type of way. But week 1, in my opinion, wasn't a great showing for them.
I can agree with that. Except for all the shutout games that we witnessed from the teams who were playing lower level teams. I think that the SEC still holds its high ranking, especially when it comes to the playoffs. But we'll see what happens. And, there's a lot of football left to play. Florida has only lost 1 game. LSU has only lost 1 game. They're not sitting in the same boat as FSU. So we'll see what happens with them. Let's move on to the Big Ten. The Big Ten. Now, the only question that I have coming out of the Big Ten is the close game between Oregon and Idaho. Is that room for concern with the Ducks? And we saw them drop in the rankings because of that struggle game. What are some of your thoughts about that?
I'm not too concerned for Oregon against the lower level competition teams, but I will say, as far as their ceiling and how good they can be, I'm not sure about them on that front. So I think even though it was a close game, I do see them taking care of business when they should. I'm just worried about how they're going to stack up against the Ohio States and Michigans of the world. Okay.
All right. Now, you did have something you wanted to touch on when it comes to the Big 12. With the Big 12, what were your thoughts on the Big 12 from this past weekend?
I guess I'll start with Kansas State. They had a bit of a rough start in their game against, I'm going to be honest, I can't remember exactly who they played, but either way, that shows the point that they should have been beating this team earlier on in the game. And obviously that was one of my playoff teams, but Big 12 is going to be really fascinating to watch this whole season. And Colorado has a huge game this week against Nebraska. But like you said, Russ, I mean, it's just week 1. There's a lot of football left to be played. So we're about to find out a lot about all of these teams.
Okay. So the Big 12, they have Kansas State in the top 25. Who do you think will be the first team to fall out of the top 25 out of all the Big 12 schools?
I did look into this a little bit, and I would have to guess and say Oklahoma State, just because they have a relatively tough game this week against Arkansas. Mm-hmm. But, Kansas State does as well. They've got a sneaky game going to Tulane. So I'll go with Oklahoma State just for fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I've always liked Oklahoma State, even as a little kid, just because, one, I like the colorway, right? That was really what attracted me to them. But not only that, but they had history over there of being a blue blood team, like a tough team. And they're always going to be a tough team. So I'm not really going to sleep on them, but I will I would say if any school was to drop out of it, it would probably be Kansas to me. If we're saying anything, I'm gonna go with Kansas if I had to pick a school. Yeah,
I hear you.
that's just me, right?
And you
And
know what? Just to nerd out a little bit more, Kansas did lose their coordinator from last year to Penn State. And I think that's a big reason Penn State looked so good this past weekend. So we'll see how impactful that move was. You could be right.
now, staying on the topic of college football and trying to transition over into the NFL because it's week 1, baby, and we're excited. We get football tomorrow. Like we get football tomorrow. We get football Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So like there's football all weekend. With that being said, there were some players out there who had a hard time transitioning to the NFL, but were big names in college. Who are some of those players that had historic college careers, but kind of didn't really transition into the NFL? What's the first name that comes to mind to you?
Man, the first name for me, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say, but the first name for me was Sam Darnold because he had a great career at USC and he's a high character guy too. I mean, you wouldn't think he's got that many flaws in terms of an evaluation from a character standpoint and a on-field standpoint, but for whatever reason to this point it hasn't worked out for him. So that's an interesting one to me. What say you?
Man, it honestly, there's a couple that stand out to me, but the biggest one for me is Vince Young. After his time at Texas, like I watched this man win a national championship, and it was incredible. Like I don't like just the pure athleticism that he displayed from the pocket presence and the ability to run the ball and just how big he was in stature. As a kid, I was for sure like I thought that Vince Young was going to be a phenomenal NFL player, but his career didn't really turn out to be that way. So it's very unfortunate because I was looking forward to him having a very long career in the NFL, but things happen, and I don't know. I don't really know. I think I don't know if he had off the field issues or anything like that, but it was very tragic. Now, a couple other names that come to mind with me are players who had off the field antics that kind of stood in the way of their greatness. And two of those players would be Manti Te'o out of Notre Dame and Johnny Manziel of Texas A&M. So, and the same thing with Johnny Manziel. Like, listen, Manziel's famous for this right here. Like, so I thought he was coming to get the money, and when it didn't pan out, it was just like, man, like I thought this guy was gonna be great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me too, bro. I mean, he was a showstopper in college, that's for sure.
Like I don't get it. But I do think that his off the field lifestyle had a lot to do with that. As well as Manti Te'o, like he had this whole girlfriend situation, and I'm not here to get into all that, but I do say like maybe that played a part into him not panning out with the Chargers and his ability to actually reach his greatness, because you know how cyberbullying is, and when people start talking down on you, maybe some fans were in the stands and saying things to him and stuff like that. So who knows what the situation was, but those were some of our first, like what came to mind first when I said college to NFL bust. So
yeah, and the last thing I'll say on that, it is hard to predict sometimes who's going to pan out and who's not. But I think particularly with quarterbacks as well, they can have the right makeup and everything, and for some reason that light never comes on for them. So that's another science in and of itself, trying to figure out who's going to succeed at that position at the next level.
That's true.
I would say for most of the other positions, I think it just comes down to mental fortitude and commitment overall. So that's what I would say about that.
That's true, man. And if we're gonna talk about the two quarterbacks that I mentioned, you got Vince Young, who was a very large, stature quarterback, and then Johnny Manziel, who was kind of small and compact at the same time. So like both of these guys are on two different sides of the spectrum. But I thought Johnny Manziel was the way that he played the game. And if you think about it, like Texas A&M kind of came out of nowhere when it came to Johnny Manziel. When he got at the reins, like it was go time. So yeah, I guess it is hard to tell. Maybe those two quarterbacks couldn't read defenses, or maybe they just wasn't getting it inside of the film room, or they, who knows what happened to those guys. But I will say for sure that I was really looking forward to watching them play in the NFL, and they just kind of faded all the way into the shadows.
Yeah, man. It's too bad, but I guess it is what it is. We still have a bunch of great players to watch, and they also have fulfilling lives after their pro careers failed, unfortunately. So they still have stories to tell and all those good things,
And speaking of great players to watch, we have Thursday night football tomorrow. Chiefs versus the Ravens. Who you putting your money on, Peyton?
Oh, man, I might even pass on a prediction for this one just because I'm cold right now. I got to get in the lab and work up my picks. No, but I think the Chiefs are favored by 3 points.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give a pick yet, but I will say this. I mean, if I know Coach John Harbaugh the way I think I know him, this is going to be a big deal for the Ravens, and they're going to come out swinging. They're going to come out and try to get over that mental hurdle that is the Kansas City Chiefs. And another underplayed storyline in this game is that even though it's the first game of the season, let's be honest, if we're looking at history, I mean, this game could determine the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, the Ravens are always formidable. We know about the Chiefs. So if it comes down to a tiebreaker at the end of the season, we could be looking back at this game. And then how about the Chiefs? This is another underplayed storyline. You have to think that they're trying to go for an undefeated season. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but going for the three-peat, I think they wanted the undefeated season last year. I think that gives them motivation in this game. They're the back-to-back champs. It's hard to gather up a ton of motivation. Obviously, they're excited to play football again, all of those good things. But I think when you're the back-to-back champ, you've got to look for that extra gear, that extra edge to get you going. And I think they'll be looking to do that starting tomorrow night.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, if they out there throwing behind the back passes, why not go for an undefeated season at the end of the day? And you're absolutely right. They have to find some motivation to keep them going. But I think that there's a lot of players on their team that already carry big chips on their shoulders anyway. And it starts with the quarterback play. Like I don't think Patrick Mahomes is satisfied and saying, "Oh, there's nothing else to prove in this league." Like, how quarterbacks think. Like, quarterbacks want to be the greatest to ever do it. So I think that he still carries a chip on his shoulder, and that it shows in his play. Not only with the draft, I think that this offense it's gotten better over time. Like, they return all these guys, and I think that we're gonna find out really soon how powerful this offense is. Isaiah Pacheco had an amazing season last year, and I think that he's looking to follow that same thing up this year as well. And that's no shots at the Ravens, but as great as Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry can be, and they got Zay Flowers on the outside, like, I think that this game, if they don't win this game, is not make or break for them. But I think that it's gonna be a crusher to their confidence a little bit, because, like you said, it is a mental hurdle and how they've been moving within the past couple of years in the AFC. So I'm looking forward to it, bro. And I'm gonna go ahead and not bet against the Chiefs here. I'm gonna go ahead and ride with the Chiefs on this one, because I've learned my lesson, and you do not go against the Chiefs.
And you know what? I'm just gonna tail you, since you're hot right now, and just take the Chiefs as well. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. I think it's gonna be a great game. I think it's gonna be, I don't know, somewhere in the 20s. If I had to call it, and with the spread being 3 points, I'm gonna go 27-24 Chiefs.
There you go.
Yeah, something like that. I do expect. I don't expect everything to come out of the playbook right now. I will say there will be some conservative play going on.
Sure.
But we're gonna see some high flying football action happening tomorrow night. So
yeah, and that was another thing I wanted to point out. I'm really looking for Lamar to take that next step in terms of his downfield passing, because I think that hurt him in the AFC Championship game last year, and I think he's fully capable of being able to do that. I just want to see him put it to the test and do it.
And I need that to happen, Peyton, because I got Zay Flowers on my fantasy team, bro. I need that to happen. Okay.
There you go, man. Yeah, pray for it.
I need him to pull through when it comes to that down the field passing. If not, then Zay Flowers, you catch that 5-yard up and get out of there, man. So yeah, bro. Like I'm really excited for football. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Man, nah, just catch us tomorrow. We're going to have our recorded session. We're excited for it, and we're excited to get this ball rolling, Just we're going to keep producing content, and we're going to keep having fun. So everyone that's tuned in, look out for our next episode as well.
Yes, sir. And if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, man. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on the top 25. Let us know your predictions for the Thursday night football game, the Chiefs versus the Ravens. I was about to say the Saints. I don't know why the Saints are in my head right now. Maybe it's because you're a Saints fan. I don't know.
Probably.
But with that being said, man, if you haven't already, please make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Thee Sportaholics. That's THEE Sportaholics. Okay, so we're looking forward to it, Peyton. I'm looking forward to watching the game with you tomorrow, man, and getting our podcast recorded. Just so everybody know, it was Peyton's fault that we did not record yesterday, okay? It's Peyton's fault we didn't go live. He didn't want to get on here and say that, but I'm putting him out there. All right.
Hey, man, I was a little jet lagged. You know how it can be flying across the country. I had to get some rest, but I didn't want to duck any smoke. I was back today. You know how it is.
No, I'm just giving him hell, man, guys. Like you just said, I know that this guy was tired. He had to get off a plane and go straight into work. So by all means, Peyton, take your time, bro. I'm not mad at you at all, man.
Oh, wait, Russ, there's one more thing before we go.
What's up?
Can you guess what it is?
Go Dolphins. Oh, no. Is this happening?
Florida State let me down, and I was praising them, and there was no reason to praise them. So here you go.
Oh, my God.
Dang, man. All right, we got to cut the stream off. Man,
that was another episode of Sportsaholics Weekend Wrap-Up, man. I'll catch y'all later, man. For Peyton with the egg on his face, I'm your host, Russ, man. Until next time, we out this thing.